Henry Nowak, the 18-year-old university student who was stabbed to death December of last year, and his murderer has just been sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 21 years for the murder. Now, what is very shocking about this murder as well, obviously the murder itself, but the way the police handled this situation straight afterwards. Now, I'm not sure if you have seen the CCTV, the body cam footage of this arrest afterwards. Not the arrest of the murderer, as you would think, but the arrest of the victim after he's been stabbed 5 times. So Vikram Digwa, who was 23, has been sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. Now, I will tell you a little bit about what might happen to him or what he can expect when he's inside of prison. But first off, I'm just going to go over this whole incident, and I have done a little bit digging into it to see why this happened, why the murder took place, what happened beforehand, and who these two individuals are. But this was actually on December of last year, the 3rd of December 2025. And this, in my opinion, has definitely been kept quiet, hush-hushed, because now, only since the trial is over, that this is coming to light, that obviously the reason why they'll have done that is because obviously with it being a murder case, they need to keep things so that the defendant is entitled to a fair trial. But there's uproar now since the video has come out. Politicians are involved. Even Nigel Farage has been and bowed down on one knee. I've seen some clipping or some video and talking about the George Floyd attack. We all know who George Floyd is. And they're saying, why wasn't Henry given the same treatment afterwards, after his death, when the police officers have done that to him? They've dragged him from fucking behind the car where he's been trying to get away. And he's lying there and he's saying, I've been stabbed. Was there any help? No. They dragged him from behind, and the first copper on the scene said, no, you haven't, mate. If you haven't seen it, just go onto Google and type in Henry Nowak murder and it'll come up. You can see the body cam footage. It is absolutely fucking outrageous, ridiculous. Those coppers want sacking. They want took off the job. But I am going to tell you a little bit about the whole thing, just in case some of you haven't seen it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened on that night and the reasons why the coppers behaved the way they did. There is no justification for the way they behaved, because one white lad who's been stabbed, who is the victim, and Vikram Digwa, who is a Sikh, who is pretending to be the victim. The coppers, normally, if it was 2 white lads, they would get them both and find out who's telling the truth. But in this case, and I'll tell you the reasons why later as well, they believed the murderer and they treat him with dignity whilst they treat the dying white teenager with no dignity whatsoever. So a weapons-obsessed killer who stabbed a student to death has been jailed for life with a minimum of 21 years. Digwa used a 21-centimetre 8-inch blade he said he carried as part of his Sikh faith, which he used to kill Henry Nowak, who was 18-year-old, who was walking home alone after a night out with friends in Southampton on the 3rd of December. The victim from Essex was handcuffed by police as he lay dying at the scene after Digwa lied, claiming he had been racially abused by the teen and had acted in self-defense. He told officers his turban had been knocked off his head and he had been injured, which was a load of lies. He took the turban off himself after he knew and realised he'd stabbed him 5 times and thought, shit, it's game over. I've killed him. So Judge William Mosley KC told a packed Southampton Crown Court that Digwa had brought shame upon his family and his religion. Never mind that. Don't be fucking talking like that. You should be saying, never mind bringing shame upon his family and the family's religion. What about poor fucking Henry? What about him? What about his family? Never mind the shame that he's brought. You should have been griefing him, saying you've took a young man's life, an 18-year-old. Never mind you've brought shame on and shame on your religion. Body cam footage released by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary with the family's permission shows officers arriving at the scene and speaking to Digwa and others. Nowak, who is seen on the ground in the video, can be heard saying, "I've been stabbed and I can't breathe," multiple times. The footage shows officers turning Henry onto his side and handcuffing his hands behind his back. After a couple of minutes, Henry becomes unresponsive. An officer proceeds to tell him he's under arrest for assault. The police then contact an ambulance to check on Henry. Temporary Deputy Chief Constable Robert France apologised and said officers had been lied to in a 999 call made by Digwa's brother and had faced an extremely complex crime scene. Wasn't extremely complex to me. One individual, whether he had been griefing someone racially or not. If he's saying, "I've been stabbed," he's fucking lying on the floor in front of a car where he's been trying to get away. And he's moaning, he's saying, "I've been stabbed." He's not any threat, he's lying there, incapacitated. Check him. You've got a duty of care as an 18-year-old fucking boy on the floor, bleeding to death, telling you, "I've been stabbed, I can't breathe." So what do? You rip him out by his legs. Then you proceed to put his arms behind his back. But then when he becomes unresponsive, you think, oops, wait a second, he might be telling the truth. So what do they then do? They lead Digwa away to a police station to go and get him some food and comfort him because he's had his turban knocked off his head and he's pretending he's got a black eye. Absolutely outrageous. The judge dismissed the racism claims made by Digwa, adding his actions had stirred up racial tension in Southampton and across the country, which have made many Sikhs worried about their safety. "You were sober but were carrying a large Sikh dagger." He added Digwa had murdered a much-loved young man, inflicting a lifetime of loss upon his family. Speaking outside court, the victim's father, Mark Nowak, said the contrast between how his son and Digwa had been treated was unbearable. Henry should not have died on the streets of Southampton in police custody, he said, calling it inhumane and degrading, and absolutely right. I agree with you on that. As an absolute joke, absolute travesty. He goes on to say that Henry did not die with dignity. He should never have been handcuffed at all. So I will come back onto this bit here because there is quite a bit more to that story. But what I'm going to talk about now is the reason it happened, because I was wondering, like, what has happened with this confrontation. But Henry was walking back to his student accommodation, and when obviously they've took his blood and everything after he's died, which they do for toxicology and different things, and it came back that he wasn't even drunk. He was under the drink drive limit, which you can have a pint, 2 pints before you're over the limit. So it just goes to show that he hadn't had that much to drink. But it goes on to say that obviously Degwa, who is saying he's carrying this weapon for religious purposes, which is absolute fucking bollocks. But there actually is the law where, under legal exemptions, weapons are prohibited. You can carry weapons if they are for legal exemptions for the traditional Sikh Kirpan. The judge and the Sikh community leaders noted the weapon exceeded standard ceremonial boundaries. So it's okay for certain people in certain religions to carry knives as long as it's for religious purposes. But any ordinary British citizen carrying a knife will be sentenced for up to 6 months, I believe it is now, for carrying a knife. But whilst he was walking home, he got into an altercation. Obviously, Digwa's brother was there. There must have been a few of them. Henry's on his way back to the student accommodation, not even drunk. And he's come across Degwa. They've had a confrontation. Henry has actually pulled his phone out and started recording him, probably because he's saying, yeah, you're a bad man, aren't you? You're a bad man. And then Degwa responds by saying, yes, I am a bad man. And later on, when the police realise it was Degwa who stabbed him, when they've eventually arrested him and searched him, he had Henry's phone in his pocket. This is just an outrageous case. He had his phone in his pocket, so was he not charged with a robbery as well? There's no robbery or anything being stated. But if he's attacked him, he's murdered him, and then he's got his phone on him, is that not robbery as well? But the altercation, obviously after that, he's took the phone off him. Then he's pulled out his knife. And as Henry is running away, he stabbed him twice in the back of the legs as he's trying to get over a fence. Then he's proceeded to stab him another 3 times, stabbed him in the face, and the fatal blow was the one where he stabbed him in the chest. So he, who was sober, Degwa, sober, carrying a big knife, has actually realised, shit, he's going to die. So he is the one that actually rang the coppers. He's rang the coppers and said, I'm getting racially abused, I've been hit, please come to my assistance. So they came to his assistance, he told them what had happened, but by this time, Degwa's parents were there, his mother, his father, his brother who was sticking up for him, his mother who had took the knife away from him, went back to the home and stashed the knife. She didn't do a very good job of it because when they went and searched it, they found it with Henry's DNA on it. So she didn't do a very good job of concealing it. And it was Henry's father Degwa's father who was actually standing with Henry before he fell over, aiding him and assisting him, trying to see if he's okay. His Degwa's obviously went and tell his parents what he's done. So then he's rang the coppers and said he's getting racially abused. So then they've came and took his word for it and put Henry's hands behind his back whilst he's bleeding profusely, dying at the scene. Them horrible, rotten coppers need taken off the fucking job and put inside themselves for the way they treated that teenager. This wasn't a thug. This wasn't a gangbanger. This was a university student trying to better his life. He doesn't even look like a bad boy. He looks like an innocent, which he is, an innocent teenage boy going to university to better himself. But then, on his way back, he's even been out for a drink with his friends. But he's going back because he's a sensible young man. Going back, not even drunk, going back to his student accommodation and come across Digwa, who decided to take his life. But the investigation about the coppers, because there is an investigation about the coppers now, which I've looked into to see what is actually going on. So an active independent investigation has been conducted by the Independent Office for Police Conduct and the official police watchdog for England and Wales. The investigation focuses strictly on the contact officers had with Henry on December the 3rd, 2025, examining their decision to handcuff him and the adequacy of the first aid provided, or the inadequacy. Investigators are meticulously analysing a large volume of police body-worn footage alongside the extensive forensic and medical evidence presented during Digwa's murder trial. 5 responding officers from the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary initially attended the scene, and as of June the 2nd, 2026, the IOPC stated that all involved officers are currently being treated as witnesses rather than suspects of misconduct, though this status remains under continuous review. Suspects, put them on trial and get the fuckers. Initial evidence from the murder trial indicated that the internal wound to Henry's heart was so severe that he likely could not have been saved, even if officers had acted differently. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Additionally, records show that officers realised Henry was gravely injured, removed the handcuffs, and initiated CPR within 3 minutes of their arrival. Well, it should have been done within seconds. I've been stabbed, officer, I've been stabbed. You fucking check to see where he's been stabbed. He's been stabbed in the heart. Right, so there was one other little bit I was going to go over here. So the two-tier policing controversy. Public figures and political leaders have criticised the police response as a damning failure of modern policing. Critics argue that diversity, equity, and inclusion training may have led officers to immediately trust a minority suspect making a racism allegation over a critically injured victim. So there's something in place called a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion training. So that means if you have 2 people in the street, one is from an ethnic minority background, one is a white man, a white English man. So they've been trained to believe the minority, the ethnic minority man, not the white man. In modern day England, that is England for you. That is the messed up UK system, and it boils my fucking blood, as you can tell. But I just wanted to come on, bring you this story because it is making headlines. Someone has asked us to do it as well, and I did want to have a look into it to find out exactly what was going on with this case and what the background to it was. And everything I've just told you there is everything that I could find and everything that I've researched to see exactly why this took place, exactly why the murder took place, and exactly why the coppers treated poor young Harry in the way that they did. But now Digwa has got to face prison inside the system. He's now got to face up to what could happen to him inside. But he will be going inside of a high security prison, and he, if he's not someone who's already involved in that sort of lifestyle or that world, or doesn't know anybody inside of prison, then he's in for a shock when he gets inside the high security estate. but he might be prone to some prison justice. But we will see, and I will keep you updated if anything does happen to him inside of prison. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section, people. Let me know exactly what you think of this case. I do want to know exactly what you lot think, because I know for a fact anyone watching this channel will be absolutely disgusted by the way the coppers handled this case. But I'm going to leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you are still enjoying the content. And if you are, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day, people. But most importantly, stay safe.